Sam starts us off by playing a tapped Shattered Sanctum. John plays a Forest and taps it for Elvish Mystic before passing. Tom plays a tapped Dragon Skull Summit, while Extra plays a tapped Rogrin Triumph. With the turn cycle moving back to Sam, he plays a Godless Shrine for turn, having it come in untapped by paying 2 life, then casts his partner, Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit. He passes to John. John plays an island and casts Wood Elves, ramping himself by another forest before passing. Tom plays an island and an Izzet Signet, then passes to Extra. Extra plays a command tower and the Felwar Stone. With nothing else, the turn moves back to Sam. Sam plays a forest, getting the mana he needs to cast himself. Sam, Loyal Attendant. Moving to combat, Sam triggers, creating a food token. Sam swings Frodo at John for 1, John declares no blockers, takes damage, and moves to his turn. He plays a Soul Ring, then adds to his elf collection by casting Wirewood Channeler. He swings his other 2 elves, one at Tom and the other at Extra. Both take it, and then John passes to Tom. Tom casts a Rakdos Signet, then taps for Soldevi Adnate. He finishes his turn with a tap Xander's Lounge, and passes to Extra. Extra plays a Sundown Pass for turn, which enters untapped. He casts a Soul Ring of his own, and taps out for his commander, Eowyn, Shieldmaiden. He passes to Sam. Sam plays a Llanowar Waste for turn, then taps 3 to cast Academy Manufacturer. He then goes straight to combat, triggering Sam. Thanks to Manufacturer's replacement effect, he makes a food, a treasure, and a clue. In his second main, he casts Many Partings, searching up a plains into his hand, and making another food, treasure, and clue token. Now swimming in disposable resources, he passes to John. John plays a Master Biomancer, followed by a Realm Walker, naming Elf. It enters with 2 1/1 counters thanks to Master Biomancer. He also casts Edric, Spymaster of Trust, which also enters with 2 1/1 counters. Then John passes to Tom. Tom starts by casting Frantic Search, drawing 2 and discarding Cedric the Traitor King and Demon Lord Belzenlock. He then taps 5 for Geode Golem before passing to Extra. Extra plays Herald of Hoofbeats and tries to go to combat. Before he can, however, Sam exiles his Eowyn with a Path to Exile, and Extra gets a Plains onto the battlefield tapped. He plays a Plains for his turn in his second main, then casts a Thraben Doomsayer. He begrudgingly passes to Sam. Sam plays a Plains, and the 3rd Soul Ring of the game. He casts a Ravenous Squirrel, and a Foreboding Fruit with Adamant, targeting himself. He draws 2 and makes a food, a treasure, and a clue. In his combat step, he makes another set of those tokens thanks to Sam. He sacks a food, gaining 3 life, and putting a 1/1 counter on the squirrel. He sacks 2 treasures to destroy John's Wirewood Channeler with Generous Gift, giving John a 3/3 elephant, and putting 2 +1/+1 counters on his squirrel. He swings Frodo at Extra, getting his first temp trigger, and choosing Frodo as his ring bearer. He then moves it to John. John plays an island and a Rashmi, Eternity's Crafter, which enters with 2 1/1 counters. He attacks Tom with Realm Walker, triggering Edric upon dealing damage to draw a card. He casts Lonus, Cryptozoologist, from the top of his library with Realm Walker, which enters with 2 1/1 counters. He plays a Wirewood Symbiote, also with 2 1/1 counters, triggering Lonus and investigating. Having sufficiently flooded the board with beefy elves, he passes to Tom. Tom plays a Shipwreck Marsh, then activates his Soldevi Adnate, sacking his Geode Golem to make 5 black mana. He casts an Arcane Signet, followed by his commander, Sauron, Lord of the Rings. Sauron's ability triggers, and Tom mills 5, reanimates Cedric, and amasses 5, making an orc army with 5 counters. He ends his turn with a Strionic Resonator before passing to Extra. Extra plays an untapped Spectator Seating, then recasts his commander. He activates Thraben Doomsayer, making a 1/1 human. He then moves to combat, triggering Eowyn and making 2/2/2 human knight tokens. He swings at Jon for 3 and Tom for 4, and with neither declaring any blocks, draws 2 cards off Edric. The turn goes back to Sam, who starts with a Deathcap Glade. He casts a Savvy Hunter and immediately activates it, sacking 2 foods to draw a card and putting 2 1/1 counters on his Ravenous Squirrel. He then casts Celestine, the Living Saint, before going to combat. Sam triggers, making a food, treasure, and a clue. Sam sacks the food, putting 2 more counters on his squirrel and gaining 3 life. He then swings Frodo at Tom, who gets another temp trigger. Tom takes the hit, and Sam draws 1 off Edric and passes to Jon. Jon plays Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy, who enters with 2 1/1 counters. Rashmi and Lonis both trigger, getting Jon a forest into his hand and making a clue respectively. Jon plays the forest. He plays Beast Whisperer off the top of his deck with 2 1/1 counters, triggering Lonis. He casts a Gyre Sage from the top of his deck, triggering Lonis and Beast Whisperer for a clue and a card. He casts Devoted Druid with 2 1/1 counters, triggering Lonis and Beast Whisperer. He returns Gyre Sage to his hand with Wirewood Symbiote to untap his Elvish Mystic. He recasts Gyre Sage with 2 1/1 counters, triggering Lonis and Whisperer. Finally, he activates Lonis, sacking a whopping 6 clues and targeting Tom. He steals Ayara, Widow of the Realm, from his top 6 cards, and it enters with 2 1/1 counters. Satisfied, Jon passes to Tom. Tom plays a Morphic Pool, then activates Soul Devi Adnate, sacking Sauron for 8 black mana into his pool, putting the table on high alert. He recasts Sauron, copying his trigger with Strionic Resonator. He mills 5, puts 5 counters on his Orc army, and reanimates a Corpse Connoisseur, tutoring a Terror of the Peaks into his yard. The second trigger then resolves, milling 5 more, putting 5 more counters on the Orc army, and reanimating Terror of the Peaks. Tom proceeds by unearthing his Ruthless Technomancer, hitting Jon with a Terror trigger. Technomancer also triggers, sacking the 15/15 Orc army for 15 treasures. He summons Garuda, Doom of the Depths, with Unearth, hitting Jon with a Terror trigger, milling each player for 4, and putting Atali, Primal Storm, onto the battlefield, hitting Jon with a Terror trigger again. He then unearths Bladewing, Deathless Tyrant, triggering Terror and hitting Jon again. He unearths an Ancient Copper Dragon, triggering Terror targeting Jon. He unearths an Ancient Silver Dragon, triggering Terror targeting Jon. He swings his Bladewing, Garuda, Copper, and Silver Dragon at Extra, who blocks Garuda with a human. The Ancient Dragons trigger, letting Tom draw 20 cards and make 4 treasures. Bladewing also triggers, making 6 2/2 zombies. Terror triggers 6 times, and Tom distributes 10 damage to Extra and 2 to Jon. In his second main, he casts a Hoarding Broodlord, triggering Terror targeting Extra and getting an Ashnod's Altar. His combo assembled at last. He uses his Ashnod's Altar and his treasures to unearth all the creatures in his graveyard, killing the rest of the table and making Sauron, Lord of the Rings, the winner, despite being the only one at the table without a ring.